Wait, stop. That's the one. Welcome to ZEN TENN Speaks, a show where I make new friends and reconnect with old ones. A show where everyone's stories may inspire you to tell your own story. In this podcast, we encourage everyone to get rid of shame, guilt, fear, doubt, and judgments for themselves and for others, and replace those with love, empathy, compassion, understanding, kindness, and to do your best in everything that you do. In essence, to get rid of things that no longer serve your well-being. To be true to yourself and be honest with others. Yeah, definitely. I'm so glad about that. I actually started it as a solo thing to heal myself. And then when people were watching, they're like, hey, you should include others because we have the same story and is glad to know you have a story. And so I was just like, you know what, that's true. And it's been great. I've reconnected with old friends from the nightclubs. and I've met new people like you, and it's great to hear people's stories, and it's helping me a lot mentally and emotionally as well. And human connection is really important, and we are so scared about connecting. I've noticed, same with the drinking or anything else, we tend to connect easier when we are, for some reason, we are at a low point or doing something that's hurting us, and we connect through either a story or an event. But then when our lives are like happy-dory, we tend to, not like 100%, but we tend to like doing it solo and not caring to connect. And it's I've noticed that.
It's strange, and you're right. We are. I don't know if it's getting worse, but it seems like we're more afraid of human connection than we ever have been. And I don't really understand why. Because connecting to different people and, meeting new people, learning their stories, sharing your story with them, there's a benefit to that I can't even put into words. And we don't, for whatever reason, we don't seek it out unless there's a, like you say, a tragic event or some one uniting thing that brings us together. For the most part, when we live our daily lives, we just don't connect. We have our people that we maybe live with or that we're super close to and that we share things with, but that's it. We don't reach out beyond that. And we need to. We need to, because it feels right. It feels better. I'm in North Mississippi. You're from, you said Boston, right?
Yeah, I'm from Boston, but I live in New York now.
And you're from Boston, you live in New York. So we've never met, but here we are having a conversation and sharing life experiences, and this is what it's all about. I mean, if more people would do things like this, they'll really, really benefit them, and I think they'll be able to take more control of themselves.
I totally agree 100%. I've made a post about why basically asking questions and seeing about my life. Like, we're so afraid of talking to people, and because I'm the kind of person, I don't know where I got that from. I guess because it's just my personality. If I make eye contact, I'm gonna smile or say hello, and if I cross anyone's path, I'm gonna say hello or even nod or have an energy of amiable. And when I moved here, people are like, that's such a weirdo and don't do that, and people are gonna judge you. And then I would do what they do so I can fit in. And then later on, I was like, that's not me. I'm not gonna do things for people's temporary pleasures. I'm gonna do me because I'm not hurting people. Like, what is saying hi to you does to you? Why are you so scared? Like, that's your issue, not mine. So I say hi to people regardless. And a lot of people get thrown away. They're like, whoa, what's going on? Like, why is this person smiling and saying hello? But then eventually, sometimes if I stay in the area, they get it, because like, come on, like a stranger is a friend you haven't met yet, and we don't need to be friends. Like, can we be like admirable to each other? Because if something's happening to you, you would want me to go and save you and touch you and grab you out of that hole. So why not just make an eye contact and say hello? Like, no contact. It's like, it's interesting.
Yeah, and I think there's a kind of a natural, or maybe natural is not the right word. There's a distrust. There's an automatic fear of other people.
It sucks.
And it doesn't. I don't really know where it comes from, but and I mean I'm guilty of it, man. I'm just now getting to the point. Golly, so 9 months ago, there's no way I would have taken your call and done this. So
Yeah.
I'm just now getting to the point where I am much more able to smile and make eye contact and say hello, and because I was that way. I was very closed off. I didn't if I didn't know you already, I didn't want you to be part of my life, and I didn't want to be part of yours.
Mm-hmm.
And that was extremely unhealthy, and I didn't know it at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a lot of ignorance when it comes to that sort of thing. People just don't realize the benefits of reaching out and connecting with people, and they're naturally afraid to do it.
So true. Still now, I have neighbors where, because I love sitting in the sun, especially in summertime, and then I would tend and I would say hi or take off my earbuds and even make eye contact, say hello. And then even when I say hello to people, sometimes they don't, especially my neighbors that I know for years. And then when they were moving, they come in with smile on, wanting something from me. And of course, in my heart, I felt temporarily bitter and mad. Like, how could you see me for months and years and now you want to talk to me like as if we're friends? I was like so offended. But then I had to be like, what? I don't understand, so I'm going to leave it at that, and I don't know their story, and I'm not going to take it personal. I've read this book, The Four Agreement, and one of the agreements is don't take things personally. Even if it seems personal, like someone's getting in your face seems personal, but our lives is personal, and it's not personal. Someone else's life is not personal to us. And that's something I had to experience and learn. And now when people are not friendly, I'm still gonna stay me, and I'm not gonna get to their level of unfriendliness, because friendliness is who I am, and I'm not gonna change that for other people.
Right, and that's great. That's the way we should be.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, we can't take things so personal. I mean, we've got to figure out a way to be, I guess, more receptive would be the right word, I guess, to everyone and their own stories and their own issues. It's if we can kind of step outside of our bubble and what's going on with us and say, hey, I realize I don't know you, but I know that you've got your own deal. You've got your own things going on. So any way you treat me, anything you say to me, if you don't really know me, then you're not attacking me personally. You're coming from your own place. And
yes,
I have to understand that and respect that and be like, maybe that's not how I would treat someone, or that's not the way I would say something to someone, but that's the way you are. So, okay. I hope you have a great day.
Yep, I had to practice that firsthand last year, and I'm glad I practiced it and experienced it. And next time I can do so much better with that, definitely. So, have you found a reason why you drank in the past through therapy? Because you know how they say, like, a lot of stuff we do, especially when we go to addiction, sometimes there's a reason. And I'm asking, and I feel like most of the time there might be a reason, but not every time. So have you find out if there was a reason besides it tasted good?
Yeah, well, it was, for me, it was a combination of things, and it's probably a combination of things for a lot of people. But when I first started drinking, I just did it solely for fun, because that's what I was 20, 22, 23 years old, and that's what people my age did. Mm-hmm. So that there wasn't any underlying reason for that. But when I got to be in my early 30s and I really started drinking heavily, my wife and I had a lot of marital issues and, some infidelity on, both our parts, where we made some terrible decisions and kind of destroyed our trust in each other in our marriage. And that led, now she was able to handle it without falling onto heavy alcohol abuse, but I wasn't. So I drank more and more and more in order to escape from that reality and that pain. And we chose, like, we had a daughter, so we chose to, work through it and stay together, because we didn't want to get divorced and didn't want, our daughter to have, the single parent life. So we worked on it. The problem was that my working on it involved drinking heavily. So that led to, and I say it led to it. I don't know if that's really what made me become so dependent upon alcohol, or if it was just because alcohol and me didn't mix. I don't know. But once I was able, somehow, over the course of years, to actually work that out and get to a better place with my wife, I still had the alcohol. I was still drinking it extremely too much, and just drinking real heavy. And that became our big issue in our marriage. So the infidelity stuff and the trust issues and all the problems that we had worked through that, and we were in a better place with that. But Kevin couldn't stop drinking. So that was a whole new issue. And I didn't see that at the time. I thought that was something I was doing just to cope, and that had actually benefited me and helped me. And it was actually destroying me. So I've learned that probably in the last 5 or 6 years, the reason that I drink was because I was so addicted to the way I thought alcohol made me feel. Because I thought it made me feel like I was happy, like I was content, like I could take on anything. When in reality, I would sober up during the week and be extremely depressed and angry and bitter. And I thought, man, I can't wait till the weekend so I can drink again and feel better. And I've learned now that the alcohol was what was causing that. It was what was making me believe I was miserable and depressed, and I needed it to feel better.
Wow, that's amazing insight. Wow. So you say you gone to AA. So you received therapy as well. Are you still having therapy, or was it something in the past?
No, it's something in the past. I don't see anyone regularly now. Like I said, I seek out online stuff, and I try to talk about it. I try to talk about it as much as I can, which is what I've seen multiple therapists in the past, and every one of them has told me, communication. You need to talk. You need to talk about it. It doesn't really even matter who you talk about it with, but you need to talk.
Yes.
You need to explain yourself. You need to let people know what's going on. And that was a big issue for me, because I didn't do that. And as I've learned to do that, that's been extremely beneficial. And honestly, I got to a point where the last person that I was seeing, she was great, but she was really busy and was having a lot of other things going on. And, my schedule's crazy. So it was just one of those things where I was like, well, let me see if I can do this. Let me see if I can do this without having to go to somebody every week. And I've just kind of grown from there. And as far as AA, I don't attend AA meetings regularly anymore because one, because of my schedule, and two, because there came a point where, with me anyway, and this not, AA is a great thing, helps tons of people, but for me, it was a little too, I don't know if structured is the right way to put it, but it was a little too much for me. Like, they were working 12 steps and, being as goal oriented on those steps in the big book as they are, it didn't really fit for me. So I learned a lot from it, and I took a lot away from it, but I didn't follow it strictly. And they were never rude or mean about it, but they encouraged me to do more things their way. And it didn't really work for me. So I kind of stepped back from AA a little bit.
Yeah, that makes sense because I think I'm the type of person I do better when it comes to self-help. I love podcasts, YouTube, like anything inspirational to people talk about, even your story, even reading your stuff. Because I didn't go through an alcoholic issue, but reading your stuff is like, it's still like, it could be different, let's say, different experience, but the core of it is still the same for across the board. Right. So I get inspired by those things, and then I do better for my life. But for some people, they need the therapy, they need the AA. Because I know some people go AA for 20 years, and I'm like, wow, damn, 20 years, that's great. And if it's working for you, and just like some people, I feel like some people need the structure, like religion, because I'm a spiritual person. Some people need to go every Sunday, and some, like Mormons or Jehovah's Witnesses, they go 3 times a week. And if you're Catholic and you go on Sunday, you could be like, oh my God, 3 times, that's all excess. But some people need that. And to each their own. And I think that's great. If you know what you need and you do it, then that's good, totally good for you. Because if it's working, then perfect.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it's all about. And you have to figure out what you need, you know. And that can be difficult and that can be scary. But I think that it goes back to taking responsibility for your own life. You know, you've got to figure out what's going to make me feel the best, work the best, think the best. And if that's something like AA or some kind of structured program like that, then that's great. And, you know, if it's reaching out and making a whole lot of new friends and being in a group of people, you know, that's great. If it's church or, you know, your religion or whatever you're doing there on however many days you want to do it, then that's fine. But you've got to figure it out for yourself, and then you've got to follow up on it. You know, you've got to keep doing it.
Right. And so why is it important for you? Because you've been pretty active in the group, I've noticed. Why is that important for you?
It is, part of it's accountability. Part of it is just connection, man. I mean, you know, the more I put myself out there and the more that I talk to people and the more people talk to me, the more it helps me just, you know, kind of not even consciously necessarily, subconsciously in the back of my mind, it helps me to, hey, you're on the right path. You're doing a good thing. You know, your journey is, you're heading in the direction that you need to be. And I need that. You know, I like that reassurance, because I don't want to feel like a rudderless ship just drifting on the ocean. You know, I want to feel like I'm going in a direction. So the more I can reach out to people, the more I can talk to people. And I don't have all the answers. I don't have hardly any answers really. All I can really tell you is my experience and what I was able to do. But if it can help anybody, you know, then that's what I'm doing it for, man. Because I've been there, you know, I've been in that really low place, and it's a terrible place to be. And there were people that tried to reach out to me, and I wouldn't listen to them. And I just want to be able, if there's somebody out there who's super low and they don't know what to do, if I can give them any kind of advice to maybe help them pick themselves up a little bit, that's what I want to do. So that's really the main reason that I try to be as active as possible.
Yeah, thank you for your service to others and being there and your strength and your courage to do it, because it takes a lot of work, like mental and physical, to do things in life. Because at least for me, I love doing things, but sometimes I would love to sleep all day too. Yeah. And then I have to get up and not, and it takes mental strength and doing things with people. So that's great. So I'm gonna ask you a question. As you know, I'm I'm just still kind of figuring out what word to say. But I created the podcast to basically help myself and others to not be shame and guilt and fear about things anymore, and whatever it is that went through our lives. And in my solo podcast, that's what I talk about. I talk about my shame and my guilt I had and my fear, and how I'm working on it, or how I've overcome them. So in this next question, you don't have to answer it, but I wanted to ask you, what is your shame, guilt, and fear when it comes to the story that we've been talking about?
Okay, shame, guilt, and fear. Let's see. Shame. I'll just answer shame and guilt kind of together, and that is when I was so heavily drinking, I would completely lose control of any kind of morality or filter that I had. Like, my thought process became, if you're thinking it, say it. If you want to do it, do it. I'm going to be dead in 100 years and nobody's going to care anyway. So just go for it. And that led to horrible decisions. I mean, I hurt my wife. I hurt family members. I hurt friends. I said things to people's wives that I should never have said. I said things to people that I disagreed with politically, or I disagreed with spiritually, and I was.
Hey, some people do that sober.
I know, that's true. They do. But I usually don't do that sober, but I would when I was drinking, and I was very, very mean and vindictive and selfish, and I'm very ashamed, and I have a lot of guilt and regret, and that's, that can be tough to process and tough to deal with, but that was a big part of AA that helped me a lot. Was, you start controlling your addiction, and you have to learn to forgive yourself. You have to learn to understand that you were not healthy. You were not mentally healthy, and you made mistakes, and you've got to learn to let that go, because you can't change it. You can't go back. You can't take it away. So you've got to start repairing. If you're destroyed relationships, you've got to work on repairing them, and you've got to forgive yourself. And if other people forgive you, then they forgive you. If they don't, they don't. That's up to them. But I can control how I move forward with that, and that's kind of how I deal with the shame and guilt. Now, as far as the fear, oh man, I think my biggest fear, from what I told you, is, I guess, relapse. I'm my biggest fear is that one day, for whatever reason, I'm gonna have an alcoholic beverage, and I won't stop, and I'll be right back in that same place. Mm-hmm. And I think everyone who's ever, even with the sugar, I think
I've relapsed many times.
Yeah, anybody who's dealt with addiction, that's probably the fear that's in them most of the time is. Mm-hmm. is getting back into that and not being able to get out again, mm-hmm. because you can destroy yourself. You can kill yourself.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. What are your personal steps have you taken to turn your life around? Let's say, give us 5 that worked for you, and maybe someone listening to this, that if they hear it, they can either do their own. They probably could even implement yours if that works for them. If you have 5 steps that you've taken that turn your life around.
Okay. First, and probably should be the first thing, is to realize that you do have the control and the ability to take care of it. You do have the control and the ability to change your circumstance, to change your way of thinking, to change your life. That should be number one. You have the ability to do that. Not your counselor, not your spouse, not your friends, not your coworkers, not your priest. None of those people can do this for you. You are the one that can do it, and you're the only one that can do it. And you have the ability to do it. I think that's number one. That's where you really got to start. And once you've done that, then set some goals. Set some goals that are for you. It doesn't have to be physical. It doesn't have to be, gym or exercise. It can be, but, whatever you like, whatever you think you might like. If you have always wanted to, climb a mountain, if you've always wanted to write a book, if you've always wanted to make a movie, set some goals that involve learning to do those things and start working on it every day. Spend 30 minutes every day doing that. Whatever it is, just spend 30, 45 minutes, take some time out of your day and spend time trying to reach that goal or those goals if you want to make multiple goals. And I would say number 3, whatever your addiction is, whatever you're trying to move away from, you've got to figure out how to put that out of your life. So sit down, look at what you do daily, look at where you go, look at who you're with, whatever substance you're trying to move away from, figure out how you're going to make that not a part of your daily life. Doesn't mean you won't necessarily be around it, because if it's alcohol, you're going to be around it. But you can take it out of your daily life. If you're a nighttime drinker, you come home from work, you have a few drinks, so it turns into too many, whatever. Figure out what you're going to do with that time when you come home from work. Figure out what you're going to do that won't involve the alcohol, or won't involve the cocaine, or won't involve the sugar, or whatever else it is. And you've got to figure out a way to substitute that. And if that's where you want to work on your daily goals, that's good. If you want to make that your exercise time, or your meditation time, or your prayer time, you've got to figure out some way to substitute whatever it is you're moving away from. And then reach out and talk to people. Open up and talk to as many people as you can. You would be shocked at how many people want to talk to you about this and want to hear it. They may be struggling with it themselves. They may have beaten it, or they may just be interested. Because there's a lot of people out there that are just interested. They're interested in learning. They're interested in knowing new people and learning new things about new people. So go talk to them. Find them. They're really not that hard to find. I mean, my gosh, I was a member of this group for 3 or 4 weeks before, you and me started talking. So, I mean, it's not that difficult. You can do it. You just got to be willing to do it. And that's the last thing, man. You've got to be willing to do it. You realize that you can do it. You set yourself some goals. You remove the substance. You talk to people, or you realize you can talk to people. You got to be willing to do it. If you're not willing to do it, then none of the other stuff matters. You've got to be willing to do it.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. That's amazing. Awesome. And even those things you're saying, I'm going to implement them in my life for different reasons and different steps. I've noticed when it comes to the fear that you mentioned with the relapse thing, I've noticed in other groups, or maybe that group too, a lot of people come up in there. I don't make any comments because I've learned that some stuff that I say are not so conventional, and I don't want to, rile up anybody. But I read some people are saying how they have relapse, and they often apologize to their group. And I'm like, okay, so my thought process is, if you're apologizing to a group that you've been following, and then let's say you fall off 100 days or 30 days because they saw your story, are you doing it for the group, or are you doing it for yourself? That's the question I tend to ask. And the second thing I tend to have in my head is, it's okay, you're a human being. When I say it's okay, it's not like it's okay, go ahead and do it, but it's okay to stumble, to make mistakes. We're not perfect. I feel like individually, life is what it is, and everything is perfect. There's this plane we don't know about, and we're just playing into it in that way of, okay, you stumble, and then you can do it again. Keep doing it again, just like walking or learning a new language or cooking or any hobby.
Right.
Because who said, even if you're religious, you believe in God, not many people got in going and went to talk to them, and you had a conversation, and he's your friend and he's talking to you verbatim, Yeah. So therefore, who said you had to be sober for 50 years and never stumble? And if you do that, that's great. And if you stumble, then you just have to do it again. You have to try again.
That's it. That's it. And that's why when I'm in the group or when I'm talking to anybody and they relapse or they have an issue and then they immediately apologize, or say, that they hate themselves or they're screwed up,
Yeah.
I try to always say stuff like, that's okay. I mean, I'm not saying it's okay to keep doing what you're doing,
right?
Like you said, but it's okay to mess up. It's okay to fail sometimes. I mean, nobody, at least nobody I knew, got on a bicycle when I was a kid and just took off. Most of us fell over a few times.
Yeah.
And we kept doing it. We kept doing it until we got to where we could do it. And that was one of the biggest things for me when I tried to quit drinking. Oh gosh, I really tried to quit twice and failed both times. And I think I went 4 months the first time and maybe 3 months the second time. And this third time that I decided that I'm done, and that's where I am now. I was watching a video, and I don't even remember who it was, but they were talking about relapsing and failing, and he said, look, if you're watching this video, you're going to quit. That's why you're watching this video. You've tried to quit. You may have relapsed, you may have failed, but you're going to get there. It's already in you. You already know there's a problem. You're already trying to address it. You're seeking out ways to help yourself. So that's what I try to tell people when they post stuff like that, or when they tell me stuff like that. I'm like, hey, understand, things happen. We make mistakes. But you're already doing right, because the first thing you did when you realized you had relapsed, or when you sobered up, you come to a group of strangers and you apologize for it, which you don't even have to be doing. You don't have to be apologizing to strangers.
Yeah.
But you're doing that because you know that you want to quit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's powerful. That's good. That's already something that's within you, that's driving you. So.
Right.
I try to remind people, you don't owe us an apology, but you're doing good. You're on the right path.
Yeah, one of my gurus, I don't know if you know Dr. Wayne Dyer. He passed away a couple years ago, but when he said that, it changed my perspective of things, and I don't use the word failure anymore. Why? Because he says you only fail if you're attached to the outcome.
Right.
But if you enjoy the process, who says, let's say, when it comes, let's say your business, like let's say if you bought 500 t-shirts you wanted to sell for Christmas and you didn't sell them for that year, like who said it was going to happen anyway? You had an expectation. And is that failing? No, you had that experience. And if you're stuck on the outcome, then as you're living that experience, then you're not even going to learn what you needed to learn at that moment, because life only happens in the present and not in the past. And thinking that you fail is being stuck in the past.
That's true.
And having an expectation is being stuck in the future, because we don't know.
Right.
And so when he said that, mic dropped. I've live my life so differently because of that now. Like, because I do art and do different things, I'm just enjoying the process. One time I bought 500 calendars to sell. I only sold 5. And of course I felt a certain way, but I was just like, I have a motto that says, in life, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. How many times have I won and I felt so great about it? So if I lose 2 times, why do I need to feel like my world is ending when winning was so much more? So I just like get over the losing part or the failing part, because I know I win so much more than failing.
That's right.
At least that works for me.
Yeah, and that's great. That's absolutely true. I mean, and our everyday life, if we would just learn to experience it, and part of experiencing it, a big part of experiencing it, is learning and talking to people, communicating. So if we could just, and part of that is our, our society, especially in America. We're very, very goal and success oriented when it comes to your day. You want to make a certain amount of money. You want to own your own home. You want to be able to vacation. And,
so external stuff, yeah.
And that drives so many people, and I think we got to find a way to kind of pull back from that, because that sets yourself up for a pattern of failure, a pattern of constantly not meeting the expectation.
Right, beating yourself up.
Shouldn't be how we live.
Oh yeah, 2020 has helped me stop the rat race, full stop. I had to question how good is that gonna be for me, but you know what? I'm gonna listen to my own speech of living in the present, because that's all I can do. And it's like, I cannot live my life based on, I can be inspired and make my own choices based on what feels good for me at the moment, if it's like not destructive, of course. Right. And the rat race was stressful and crazy for me, and 2020 had it forced us to stop it. So I'm still on that little mojo, if that's the word.
Yeah.
So have you got the support that you need since you 171 days sober? Like, how do you feel in your life right now? Do you have support around you?
I do. I don't have, like I said, I haven't, just went completely public with everything, but I have a great support system in my immediate daily life with my wife and my daughter. When my daughter tells me, "Dad, I didn't want to bring friends over," I told people that they couldn't come over because I didn't want them to see, 20, 30 beer bottles on the counter. That kind of thing hits you pretty hard when you're a parent, and makes you realize, my gosh, what was I doing? I was completely alienating my family. But they're really, really great and really supportive. And my parents, both my parents are still living. They're very supportive. They know everything, and they're fantastic. I have two brothers, an older brother and a younger brother. They both know, they're wonderful. They still drink, but they don't drink around me. And they've all been really, 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 really good. And the few close friends that I have that I've told, that know about this stuff have been good. There have been some people that, some friends, some longtime friends even, that have been like, I don't get it. I don't see, I don't understand. Why don't you just not drink so much? Mm-hmm. And, I have to step back and realize they can understand. So I don't even try to get into it with them. I just tell them, I don't drink anymore. And they say, okay. And that's just a part of it. Some people aren't going to get it, but for the most part, I have a great support system. I have a lot of people cheering for me and behind me, and people that were willing to forgive just the complete jerk that I was, and accept the person that I have become.
That's amazing, and I root for you as well, because when I saw your stories, I was compelled to reach out and hear more. And I think it's very important to. It's like, I've done my best when I lived in Boston. When I don't have those friends anymore. We all fell out for whatever reasons, but when they were in their addiction, when it comes to alcohol and other like pills and other substances, I did my best to be there for them. But one thing I never did was to shame and guilt people, because I don't like that myself. But what I was doing was the motivational speaker kind of thing. You can do it. You should do better. Da, da. And when you're in that process, you don't want to hear that too. So basically, to them, probably I wasn't a good friend that way, because I wasn't doing it with them. And so I think what's one of the things that's important from what I've seen in the group is, and this is one of the reasons I did the solo podcast, is I am airing out my laundry to help myself to stop shaming myself. Because when you shame yourself, if you have a addiction problem, you might go into that. or you might get into depression if you shame yourself.
Right.
And if you guilt yourself to little everyday life stuff, it's not good either. And when you keep judging yourself, beating yourself down, let's say if you relapse, and then let's say if you, I'm glad you got support around you, and some people have zero, and then they might be easier for them to get into those things because they don't have people to look up to, or someone that can hold their hands, or someone that can say, hey, you can do it. So they feel like,
Right.
oh, why I'll just, that's one of the reason I was there for my housemate too, because he told me he needed what I did for him, because everyone else was telling him you can do better, and they were like, they were the motivational person. And of course, because he was in that addiction, he didn't like that, although those people were good for him, I feel. But he wanted someone that can just see him, understand his story, and not tell him what to do because he already knew it. And I did that, and I practiced that, and I feel like, oh, that's another way of supporting somebody if that's what they need.
It really is. And that's, like I said, I'm really fortunate to have the support system that I have, and to have the people, and there's so many people that don't. And it takes people like you and what you did there. And that's what we've got to try to be, because there's just so many people that don't have that immediate family or friends that are going to do that for them. And we got to be there for them. We got to be there for each other. I mean, we're in this thing together, and I mean, life is what we make it. We've got to try to make it great.
Most certainly. So, how are you? Oh, you said that. What kind of lesson have you taken away from your experience, and how is that making you, learning from that experience, having you live your best life currently?
Oh man, the lesson that I've taken away, the biggest lesson that I've taken away from this experience, is that I have to be accountable. I have to be responsible. I have to understand that I can control my life, my circumstances. I can control my attitude. I can control, how I'm going to respond to every single thing that happens in my daily life. I am in complete control of that. And I have implemented that attitude, that approach to how I live. So when I go to work, when I go to church, when I go to sporting events, when I, spend time with my family, whatever I'm doing, I always realize that I can handle any situation by thinking about it, by being rational, by being calm, by approaching it, by looking at it, and by not trying to escape it. That's the biggest thing for me, is don't, it doesn't matter what situation it is or how difficult it is. Don't try to run from it. Don't try to hide from it. Face it head on and deal with it. And don't, fall back into drinking or using whatever helps you to numb it. Because if you numb it, it's just going to still be there. And it's going to fester and become worse and worse and worse. So face your issues, face your problems, deal with them. I had an argument with my wife a couple of weeks ago, and I think, a year ago, it would have become a week-long fight, a week-long deal. But we disagreed on something, and it was it was an important issue dealing with insurance and finances. And I kind of snapped at her a little bit. She snapped at me, and I took a minute. I said, all right, I'm walking outside. And I went outside, and I thought about it. And I said, what's the problem here? What is it that we disagree on? And I realized in that moment that I hadn't handled the whole situation well. And part of the reason we were in the situation we were in was my fault, because I had not done the things I needed to do to make it not become an issue. So I walked back, and I also realized that she hadn't handled it that well either. So I walked back in, and I told her what I just told you. And she agreed and said, you're right. We both messed up. What do we need to do here? And we talked about it, and we resolved the issue. And the whole thing was over in 15 minutes.
Nice.
And that's how we have to do it. That's how we have to approach, or at least for me, that's how I have to approach everything in my daily life. Where I can't use anything, I can't use other things to shield it or hide from it. You got to approach it head on.
Yeah, most certainly. And I love that approach. And I've done that because I've lived with housemates for a long time. And I had to learn whenever there's an issue, even if I know it's their problem, or they're the one who brought it, instead of like blaming or demonizing, I tend to, when we get in conversation, I tend to say, so we both are here. How would you like for us to deal with this?
Right.
Or if they feel defensive because they think they're the enemy, I would reassure them that, hey, I love you, you're my housemate, and I'm glad you're living here, and I would love for us to fix that problem. Let's fix that problem without us feeling like we're each other's enemies, because we want to come home to a happy home, right?
Right.
And things like that. And doing that help people. It's like it's a human thing. We feel like defensive, and letting their guards down or having like being relaxed help the situation fix so much quicker. And having responsibility, when I know I mess up, I will enter the conversation myself without them saying, hey, you did this. Because sometimes people apologize after someone say, yeah, you need to apologize. I would enter the conversation apologizing and know where I was wrong. And then it fixed like 1 minute because there were no ego headbutts about it. So
right.
Definitely. That's amazing. I've learned so much from you and inspired by a story. Thank you so much for talking to us today. And
thank you for having me.
Yeah, definitely. And I know your story, although it's different, had helped me a lot. And I'm very grateful talking to you and having this communication and this connecting with this human experience, because we need it, and we need to not fear each other, because when I look in the mirror or when I look in someone else's eye mirror, I see myself in them, because we are all having that same human experience. And so why not connect? So thank you so much for connecting with me.
Yes, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. This has been wonderful.
Definitely. So that's all my questions. Do you have anything else you wanted to say before we go? Maybe.
Oh, no. Just thank you so much for having me, and I hope if I can help in any way, I'm happy to do so.
Definitely. Awesome. All right, that's all. Thank you so much again, Kevin. And if you want to talk later on, I'm here as well.
Okay, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Same. All right, have a good one. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, bye.